Welcome to Game Changers Collective. I'm your host, Cassie Manner, and I am so excited to introduce today's guest. Lucy Gioia is a transformative coach and consultant whose work blends deep personal experience with powerful professional expertise to help individuals and organizations break free from self imposed limitations and step into their fullest potential. With over 2 decades of guiding real change, she leverages proven tools from NLP and hypnosis to trauma informed practices and energy leadership to clear the blocks that hold people and teams back. Lucy's journey is real, raw, and resonant. She emerges from a life marked by survival mode, trauma, burnout, and self sabotage, yet transformed each painful chapter into purpose. Today, she meets clients where they are, grounded in empathy and is dedicated to facilitating deep rooted, sustainable change. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Game Changers Collective. I am so excited to be joined by Lucy Gioia. She is a absolute wealth of knowledge and a pleasure to chat with. So let's get into this episode today. Lucy, it's so nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Cassie. It's really exciting to be here with you today.
Yes. So tell everyone who's listening a little bit about your background and what led you to the work that you do today.
Yeah, I would say, like any other story, my background is layered with highs and lows. I grew up in a family with some chaos and mental health struggles and addiction, and I stepped into adulthood a little bit too early, I would say. And from that, I started to develop my own anxiety and self-doubt, and I was burning out in my career, and I kept finding myself in situations like toxic jobs and relationships. But one thing that was became really, really clear along the way was that no one was coming to fix me. No one. I had to decide to do the work myself, and every time I fell, I picked myself back up. And that resilience and that willingness to show up became the foundation of my transformation. And that's where it all began. Along the way, I realized mindset hacks weren't enough. To create lasting change, I had to rewire my identity and regulate my nervous system. And that's when I stopped coping and consciously creating. And so, what I do today is I help people and organizations navigate change, not by trying to fix them. There's nothing to fix, but by guiding them back to their own clarity, their own identity, and their own resilience. Real change isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become in the process.
Amazing. And so, you mentioned that you help people navigate change. So, what was the turning point or moment of change that really shaped your path?
I would say there's a bunch of them. Okay. There's a bunch of them, because you have your road and your path, and there's always these like key points. They all started with a decision. I wanted better and I was willing to do the work. But those key moments I would say is beating addiction and returning to school, starting over, immersing in intuition training. I kind of refer to it as like a spiritual Hogwarts school. It was really cool. I learned a lot. Becoming a coach and completing the coach training, that was really big for me. Getting let go after 15 years in corporate, I mean, what was devastating turned out to be the best thing because it led me into entrepreneurship. And so I had, entrepreneurship, but then burning out and rebuilding again. So it's, a lot of bumps along the way, but you keep getting back up.
That's all you can do, right?
That's all you could
So,
do. Yeah.
what exactly is change coaching and consulting, and who do you work with?
Yeah. Good question. So I want to start by saying that change is constant, right? You can pursue it or it's going to be forced on you, but it's a constant. And if people don't change, they stagnate. And if organizations don't change, they fail, right? And so most change fails because it's done with cookie cutter templates. Real change has to be customized. The things that I take into consideration, I consider outlook, mindset, values, capacity, and desire. And so I help organizations stuck in apathy or poor culture. So I help bring that clarity, that strategy, and that people first change. And through coaching, one to one coaching or even group coaching coming in the future, individuals stuck in patterns of self sabotage. So we're talking, using some identity work, some nervous system regulation, and subconscious rewiring. And through the Lightwork Digital Product Hub, which is a new avenue for me, helping entrepreneurs grow without burning out by using ready-made digital tools. So if you want to sum it up, I help people and organizations make change sustainable by customizing the approach based on their needs.
I love what you said about company culture, right? If the organization's culture is toxic or unhealthy, negative or not productive, the organization just is going to fail or face some serious struggles along the way.
Yeah,
I've definitely learned that through my past 10 plus years in business that, one negative person really affects the entire group. And I know that there's a study that I think Rob Dial talks about, and they take one negative person, they put them in a group with like five other people. And basically the idea is that those five people, if they were productive and worked well on their own, their productivity, when you add just that one negative person just sitting in the same vicinity as them, it brings their productivity. I mean, I don't want to quote the statistic, but it was
yeah,
very high. It was like 40% or something wild like that. And it's so true, right? And that goes for social circles too, right? You're the average of the five people that you surround yourself most with. So, choose one. So
absolutely.
yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We spend a lot of time at work. So, I see no better investment than using the time to make it not only a productive place to work, but a pleasant place to work, right? And it's not just about process and it's not just about people. There's always it's like a recipe. Every person, every organization, they have their own recipe and it's finding out what's missing, what's needed and making that customization to the recipe so that it fits and then it sticks.
Right. Yeah. With my company, for sure, company culture has become such an important thing to me because I want people to be happy when they're working. Right. They're gonna live better lives. They're gonna be happier. The money that they're making, they're gonna do more positive things with it. We're gonna be able to service our clients better. They're gonna be able to help the whole organization grow better and work better together. So yeah, I mean, what would you say are some common challenges that people or organizations face during these changes?
Well, I would say that for individuals, the biggest block is always identity. There's a quote that Bob Proctor said, which I keep going back to it over and over. It's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. It's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. And it's so important because, what's leading the show is beliefs, conflicting values, and fear. Those are all the things that are sabotaging your change. And of course, the subconscious mind, right? I think that the percentage is that 95% of your life is dictated by what's going on in your subconscious mind, not the 5%, which is conscious.
Yeah.
So those are some key things. And for organizations, I would say some common issues are breakdowns in communication. You would think that that's, something small and people overlook. No, it's huge, especially within corporate change. Burnout and change fatigue are very real, very, very real. And sometimes, Cassie, it's just a matter of is a person happy in their job or are they happier doing something else and actually listening to that, making that change. And then, of course, the good old leadership blind spots. Right? Too much emotional intelligence and not being a visionary, or not enough emotional intelligence and not hearing your people. So, those are some, I would say, classic blind spots. But what I would say is key, and this is what I've come across over and over in consulting. When you use the example of a project manager. So project manager becomes a vice president. They get a promotion and they're happy and they're excited. But what if deep down inside they start seeing themselves or they still see themselves as a project manager? And they keep doing those tasks and they keep putting themselves into situations where they're showing up as a project manager. They're never going to fully show up as a VP because that's not who they think they are. That's not how they see themselves. Right. And so it's going to fail unless we work on some identity work. And so that's why it goes for both ways, individuals and organizations, because in organizations, change fails when it's rolled out as policy instead of people. It all comes down to the people.
Amazing. And so you've worked with so many organizations and people. Can you share a success story that kind of, encapsulates what you're talking about here?
Yeah, sure. I love the success stories. I love all wins, no matter how
Right?
big or small. Yeah, you gotta always appreciate them. So on an individual level, we've had some great wins. So I had a client who left an abusive relationship and reclaimed her freedom. And another one, I would say she reconciled some childhood trauma and she finally achieved her goals. That's just giving you a high level example. And an interesting one was a father-daughter relationship completely transformed. through healthier communication and activities. So that's on an individual level, but on an organizational level, I helped a certain company create a custom operation for an organization. I helped one company create a custom operations process that's now part of their culture. Wash, rinse, repeat. For another, we built an onboarding program that improved retention and productivity. And the ones that touch my heart is when I coach new leaders to deliver powerful trainings and workshops. And then, now they're training others. They really, stepped into that. So those are some key ones that I remember that really made me smile. And the Lightwork Digital Hub, so this is newer, but I would say I'm the proof because, a $100, $199 funnel saved me $2,000 in contract fees. And a pack of pre-made reels gave me back 20 hours, so instead of being behind a laptop, I'm at the pool hanging out. And a mentor of mine, she left corporate and sells digital products, and she consistently earns 5 figures a month, and that gave her the ability to be at home nursing her newborn. So they're all wins. But I have to say your next level won't appear. You can't have stories like this unless you're really ready to rise to it.
How do you blend consulting, coaching, and your digital hub into one brand?
Well, I have to say that this is something it took me a while to reconcile them. I always saw them as separate. And so it took me a while but once I kind of saw it, it was game on. The common thread is empowerment through clarity. So most people and organizations, they either don't know what they want or they know what they want, but they don't know how to get there. And so my work is about alignment. It's about the people, the identity, and the process. And whether it's a leader or a team or an entrepreneur, I would say my secret sauce is meeting them where they're at right now and tailoring the tools to fit so they can get going and they can start building some momentum, right? Bridging strategy and soul, it's really important because one without the other doesn't last.
So you say, it doesn't last. What misconceptions do people have about change and transformation?
What sort of misconceptions? I would say that it's all about the hustle. You have to grind harder, use your willpower and work harder. I mean, that used to be me, guilty, right? Led me down burnout twice. In reality, it's about self-concept and alignment. It always comes back to that. Nervous system regulation. A lot of people think that just meditating is the tool. It's a great tool, but it's just one. And there's so many of them. And I encourage people to utilize many of them so that they can see what works for them. You really don't know unless you try. And that change has to be massive. And whereas, just like the wins, even the smallest ones, they can create the biggest results, right? A change can also start with a belief. A simple change in belief can really, really turn things around for you, and you're going to show up differently and do different things, and hence get what you want. Eh, But it always goes back to the identity. Like I said, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest who you are. And this is actually it's interesting we're talking about this. It's something that I'm going to be speaking about. I'm going to be writing a chapter in a book called My Manifested Life, and it's launching in January 2026. And it's really going to hit home on this particular topic here that you don't manifest what you want, you manifest who you are.
Amazing. And so what does that, looked like for you throughout your journey?
I would say, I mean, standing here today, right? There were times that things happened that I thought were the worst things ever. They were the worst things ever, but in reality, it was just the manifestations of who I thought I was. Leaving corporate after 15 years, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it at all, but I, didn't see myself becoming an entrepreneur. And so I was stuck, even though that's what I really wanted to do. And so what ended up happening was this business that took all the things that I did on a daily basis that was just, my sweet spot, what I was used to delivering, it just landed on my lap, right? So you could call that manifestation. You could call that, identity that I manifested, who I thought I was, but I would say it's both.
Yeah, Alan Watts has the quote, "You're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes
Five
ago."
minutes ago.
And
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because it's so true. I think people get so stuck in this, sort of patterns and cycles of, this is who I am and this is what I do and day in and day out. And then once you actually realize like, oh, I have the power to change that right now. Like, I don't even have to wait 5 minutes. I can start, acting like the person I wanna be right now and asking yourself, what would the person that I really feel like on the inside and who I want to be, how would they act? What decisions would they make? And I think that's so powerful.
Exactly. And I would like to just add to that is a lot of people aren't getting the results that they want or they're just stuck, but I believe that it's the tools and the strategy and that's a part of it, but it's the belief system. So I had someone use an example and I really, really took to this and it just really hit home. If you were to hear on the news that your favorite brand of dry shampoo, just going to throw that out, that dry shampoo caused all these different ailments and illnesses. You will make a belief right then and there, no matter how much you love the dry shampoo, you're gonna say, you know what? No, I'm not gonna do it. I no longer am a user of this dry shampoo, right? And I'm gonna just keep moving forward, find something else or another alternative. It's just that one belief, but and you stuck to it. And it's who you are. You are now a person that uses a different product and does different things. So it always comes back to the belief, the identity, and another thing is people have different systems. Someone who, values freedom and might have ADHD and who are a little bit more on the creative side might need a different strategy and approach than someone who values order, really has a structured, detailed schedule, right? And likes to work alone. So, you know, everyone has a different template, and it's just a matter of taking the time and really exploring who they are, where they are, who they think they are, and making all these things fit for them.
Yeah, so I would assume, people work with you and you're coaching them, you help them to determine all of that, navigate all of that, figure out maybe what kind of learner they are, what they like. Can you speak a little bit about when someone starts working with you, what do they really undergo in those initial phases to see like, okay, like this is how I move forward?
Yeah. So I mean, depending on how you decide to work with me, it's always going to start off with doing a deep dive in discovery, right? What I find is a lot of people are not heard. They're truly not heard. They've tried to communicate who they are or, they're still trying to figure it out. The number one thing that I usually see that starts to happen is once we start to explore who they are, what they need, what's lacking, where they want to go, uh, getting all these things really clear, the first thing that comes up is relief. And you could see it, right? It actually just happens live on the screen or in person. You could see it. It's relief. It's almost like this weight has come off their shoulders or this armor that's just being taken off. And like from there, that's when we can get to the good stuff. That's when we can get to the truth about what's bugging them, why they think they're stuck, what are some common pitfalls, and we can start to tackle them. But they're going to do it from this empowered place because they're coming into it in a session with me and they feel safe and they feel seen and they feel heard. And I'm like, again, I'm actually meeting them where they're at. We're not trying to build from this strange random place that's way too far out. Meeting them where they're at and then starting to move from there and they have the momentum and it's really amazing to see.
You mentioned relief, and I think just, yeah, having someone like yourself in their corner who they know, okay, Lucy's got my back. She's going to help me through this. I think just, yeah, I'm sure that immediate moment, it's like, wow, okay, I feel held. I feel safe.
Yeah, and also, I have these certifications and whatnot in the back, and those are great, but it makes such a difference that I can look at someone in the eye and say, "I've been there. I get you. I get you." You must I remember when that happened to me, I felt ABC. You must feel ABC or, in and around that neighborhood, and then to hear that, yes, that's where the work starts. It really truly does.
Yeah, knowing we're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for someone who's listening who does feel stuck, what first step should they take?
I would definitely say it starts with self-inquiry. I can't promote journaling enough, truly. Start journaling. Start asking yourself, what would I love instead of focusing on what you don't want. Because a lot of people that just, I hate my boss and I hate my job and I hate the blah, 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 I hate. And well, that's just making it bigger. Start by focusing on what you would love, what you want more of, and you're going to start to see some themes happen and you're going to start to get some clarity about where you want to go, who you are and some identity shifts like who do I need to be to create this result, right? As long as you're honest and journaling and giving yourself that space, it's a perfect start. And I would say definitely regulating. So you can regulate on your own by simply just going for a walk outside with no AirPods or nothing like that. Not to knock on AirPods, but just like listen to the silence, be by the water, something like that. But what I was always told by my teacher is that to co regulate, to get some help. It's faster and it's easier than doing it alone. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, how do you personally stay grounded while guiding others?
So here's the thing. I actually do practice what I preach. I would never recommend anything to someone to do that I haven't done myself. I'll be completely transparent about that. So journaling. I filled shelves with journals, tons of them. I personally love walking or sitting outside, and my thing is swimming. I love being in and around the water. My teacher started by teaching me mindfulness meditation, and that's what really stuck. It really, really stuck. And that's my always, or it's always my go-to, I should say. A box breathing and grounding. Boundaries. You gotta get clear on your boundaries and you gotta get clear with expressing your boundaries. I even was telling someone yesterday and having this exact same conversation because without the boundaries, all these things just they fail. They truly do. And I'll always be working with a coach. Always. You will never find me not working with someone in some sort of a capacity. And really what I share and what I go through and experience and even overcome, I'm always sharing with others. So it's evolving in lifetime.
Yeah, we're two peas in the pod there with our mindfulness and daily. I don't know if you do it in a morning routine. I do my stuff in a morning routine, but for non-negotiable for me every day, it's meditating, breath, journaling. Have to do it. If I don't do it, it's not going to be as good of a day.
Yeah, and we are two peas in a pod, Cassie. And that's really how I started to burn out is because I stopped doing that. These things, they're funny. They're almost like taking vitamins, right? You take vitamins and you're kind of not seeing the effects of them, but then you just start to feel okay. You're feeling better and you're moving along in life and you're like, "Oh, okay, I don't need to take these anymore and I'm not going to do them." And lo and behold, you're right back at square one. And these things are the exact it's the exact same way with nervous system regulation and all these things that I talked about earlier. Once you start to not do them, you feel it. You really do.
So, do you do free journaling or guided journaling or both? What is your
Free
journaling
journaling.
practice? Okay.
Novels and novels and novels. If I was ever resistant towards journaling, I know that I'm in my head, and what helps is just to start. I feel X, and just to, like, get it all out on paper. And once you just take that step, get it out, that shift happens, then you could start to get into the land of, this is what I want. This is, who I wanna be, etcetera, etcetera. But I'm more into freestyling when it comes to getting clear, and regulating myself. Guided journaling if I'm in a course. Yeah, and it's something that's being given to help with the material, I'll explore it there.
Yeah, you read my mind. That was going to be what I asked is like, how do you start journaling if like you're stuck or people open the page and they're staring at it and they don't know what to write? Maybe they feel silly. Like, so, I'm a first time journaler. I'm kind of nervous. I don't know what to write. I'm wondering if this is, silly or not. What should I kind of be thinking about to get me started?
Yeah, and see right there, thank you for mentioning that, Cassie, because that's the exact that's what's happening in our heads. We're judging ourselves, right? So if we're judging ourselves, like, we're just staying in this loop. Whereas if you just look at the journal as this blank slate, no one's gonna see it. No one, it's a completely safe space just by starting. And even if you're judging yourself, but the point is getting it out of here and getting it onto paper. That is the most important part because that's the shift. Yeah.
So, what is your, vision moving forward for, all of these wonderful things that you're doing, you have going on? What are kind of next steps moving forward? What can people expect from you?
Thank you. Yeah. I want to normalize change as something empowering and not scary. I grew up in a household that any perceived change, even, let alone a real change, everything was just scary. So I want to normalize it. as something empowering and not scary. I want to expand coaching and consulting for people first organizations. Very important. I'm going to be launching my own podcast, Lucy's Lens, and sharing stories like this to help create those shifts for people to get them moving in the right direction. Grow the Lightwork Digital Hub into the go-to resource for entrepreneurs, start helping them out. Like I mentioned earlier, I would be sharing my story or just one snippet of my stories, in my chapter of My Manifested Life, which is launching in 2026. And very importantly, I'm going to be giving back to causes I care about. And we talked about this, Cassie. I'm going to be giving back to animal rescues and women's shelters.
Beautiful. And so, where can listeners connect with you? They're interested in working with you, they're interested in your resources. Where should they go?
Yeah, you can visit me at my website. It's lgccc.ca. So that's lgccc.ca. And you can find the info about the podcast there, as well as the book, my socials, all the information's there.
Well, Lucy, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I'm so excited for all the exciting things you have coming up.
Thank you so much, Cassie. I really appreciate it.